I can hear you, Ian. It's Jim.
Oh, Jim, are you remote or in the room?
I'm remote.
Well, that's a good sign. Wonder if anybody else can hear us.
We can hear you.
Wow, was there ever an echo when you did that?
Can you hear me, Director Morrison?
That's better. Can't see you. Can't see anyone. Just see me. Hi.
Good morning and welcome to this special board meeting for Thursday, February 23rd, 2023. Before we begin, I'd like to recognize with gratitude that this meeting is being held on the traditional unceded territories of the Coast Salish people. And with that, we'll get underway. The first item on our agenda this morning is the adoption of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions, deletions from today's agenda? Ms. Ferguson.
No changes to the agenda so far today.
Thank you. So a motion to adopt, moved by Director Manhas, second by Director Toporowski. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. Next, we have public input period, and just checking the gallery to see.
If anyone would like to give public input, just step to the podium and seeing none. Any online for public input this morning?
No one online.
Great, thank you. So that takes us through, I believe we have no delegations, report of the chairperson, correspondence, information, or committee report. So what's next, Ms. Ferguson?
Next, we have staff reports, and that's SR1, report from Facilities and Transit Division, re 2023 budget amendment for function 411, Kerry Park Recreation Boiler Upgrade Project.
So you see the recommendations there. That's been moved by Director Segal, seconded by Director Abbott. Discussion. Seeing no discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Ms. Ferguson.
Next, we have SR2, report from Facilities and Transit Division, re the 2023 budget amendment for function 464, Recreation SLCC LC Miles Roof Replacement Project.
And you see the recommendations before us. I see Mr. Wakeham on screen. Did you want to say anything or respond to questions, Mr. Wakeham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can just give a brief intro here. This is good news that the bids recently received on the RFP surprisingly came in much lower than staff were expecting. And we're comfortable in reducing the project costs by about 50%. The amendments mainly reduce the need for short-term borrowing, which will reduce the requisition by $8,500 for the interest and principal. And then it also reduces the additional operating reserves. And the project was really estimated high due to some informal quotes that we were looking at in late 2022 prior to the RFP posting. And we also had quite a concern for a limited capacity of companies bidding, but we were nicely surprised and got very good bids. We are just concluding the award process, but we're confident in the reductions that we put forth to you.
Great, thank you. I saw Director Acton and then Director Wilson.
I was just moving it, the recommendation.
I'll go to Director Wilson and then we'll take your motion and look for a seconder. Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wakeham. This is good news. Can you tell me if there's any impact on the requisitions for this as far as budgets are concerned, please?
Mr. Wakeham.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. To Director Wilson. Yes, there is a impact of a savings of $8,500 on the requisition, and that's for the reduction of the interest and principal costs for 2023.
Okay, yeah, you did mention that. Okay, I'll second if necessary, please, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Seeing none? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. Moving on to SR3. Ms. Ferguson.
SR3 is a report from the General Manager, Community Services Department, Arts and Culture Strategy Funding.
Thank you. I see Director Wilson's hand. I'm not sure if that's up from last time. And so we'll turn it over to the floor. We do have Mr. Elzinga here. If we have any further questions, I do believe this was discussed at a prior meeting, but I'll turn it over to the floor. Either a motion or discussion. Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Segal. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. On to SR4, Ms. Ferguson.
SR4 is a report from the Finance Division, Republic feedback on the 2023 budget, and that's for information.
Thank you. I know a number of directors were able to attend a number of the sessions, but we'll turn it over to the floor for any questions, or it's there for information. Director Wilson.
WebEx, I love it. Yeah. Thanks for this. One of the things I think we miss, and I understand the rationale behind it, is that these were all held virtually, and I would love to see these come back in person if we can, because there was far greater attendance at the ones when we were able to have them in person rather than the virtual one. So is there any chance that we could get back in the future to some in-person ones?
I'll put that through to staff. Ms. Bowen? I was going to ask the same question.
And I do understand that there is a cost impact there.
Yeah. Okay, Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Wilson, we can look at that. And I know that the history with some of them in the past, pre-COVID, some of them were not attended very well, and the cost was out there with staff being out there. So we'd have to analyze which areas which benefit from it, and it would take us a bit longer with the online presentations. We can do 2 a night, where if we do in person, we'd have to be spread out more, like have to have like 4 different nights to do that at.
Yeah, understood. Follow up, please, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I understand that. Thanks, Tracy. And the thing was, in Cobble Hill and areas A, B, and C, as I recall going back, they were very well attended. But one that I did attend in Duncan, which was for the outlying areas, there was only 2 of us there. So I understand this up and down. But certainly here in the south, as you know, we're pretty committed. So if we could look at those again, I'd be appreciative. Thank you.
Thanks, Director Wilson. And I know in the one in Ladysmith with areas G, Ladysmith, and H was very well attended as well. Director Morrison.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is more along the timing question. Are we looking at a December end of December budget approval process for 2024's budget? And that brings some inherent issues just all by itself as far as timing and such goes. And I think another thing too, and I didn't attend my meeting, I was elsewhere. I think we're going to need to do a little bit more work on, especially for the electoral areas, the impacts of the changes in assessments and the like in regards to what people ultimately end up paying in the way of taxes. But if staff could maybe give us an indication if they're looking to us for a December budget completion.
Thank you. So I don't know if staff is going to look to the board for that direction, but I guess the 2024 budget process, what's anticipated in terms of timing?
Through the chair to Director Morrison, we would bring that back in a report when we bring back for the budget feedback for you guys, or when we look for a mandate from you guys. That would probably, we could add it in at that time. But it would be a lot of work to go to December for you guys. So we'd have to start earlier. So we would be coming pretty much as soon as this one was done, we would be bringing back for a mandate for you guys to turn around and send out for the departments to start their budgets for 2024 almost immediately.
Okay, thank you. Follow up, Director Morrison, you good? Okay, I'll go to Director McGonigal and then Manhas and then Wilson again.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's try to put this on. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you, one of the problems that we found in our video was the lack of ability to use the chat function, or there was some technical issues within the support system. And again, I would hope that we could have some public input ones, in-person ones, for those areas that do show some increases, significant increases in their areas. There would be some interest in those attending.
Okay, thank you for that feedback. Director Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our experience in North Carolton has been that it's been a very low turnout, even in person. 2018, 2019, before COVID, was very low in person. Even it was the same people that actually responded in 2020, 2021, were the same people that responded online as well as that showed up in 2018, 2019. So I know the school board is asking for people for input now. We'll see how that goes, but I just don't think people are that engaged in they'll complain and stuff within the budget, about a budget, but they don't actually participate in the process.
Thank you. I think next I have Director Wilson. Go ahead, Director Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, perceptive point by Director Manhas there that people are sometimes not as engaged as they could be, but I will say that down here in the south we are. I think that one of the points that was made just now about trying to finalise a budget by December, here we are nearly in March and we're still talking about it. I would be very unhappy if we were going to try and push this through to try and finalise everything by December. It's too complicated. It's too important, and I think we should take our time with it. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're just, if we can, any more discussion on public feedback? We'll get a chance to debate timing of the budget and stuff probably later in April, I would think. Yeah, when we do our budget review. So all good points, but we'll take them under consideration until we discuss that later in a couple months here. Any further discussion on the public feedback? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. SR5, Ms. Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. SR5 is a report from the Finance Division, summary of budget approvals, and that's for your information.
Thank you. So we've got that before us. Any discussion or questions on that? Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we're going to move on to SR6. Ms. Ferguson.
And SR6 is a report from the Finance Division, 2023 draft budget overview, and that is for your information as well.
Thank you. So I'll open the floor again to discussion or questions of staff. Director Douglas, please go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, when we were debating the supplementals in our previous meeting, there was a suggestion of not including the $100,000 contribution towards the operating reserve for the general government function, just recognizing that there's pretty healthy operating reserve there already. Would this be the appropriate time to bring up potentially changing that?
Yes, I'm seeing nods from that side of the room. So yes, this would be the appropriate time.
All right, so Mr. Chair, again, the suggestion would be, so the function for general government includes $100,000 budgeted to put into the operating reserve for that function. And according to the information that was provided to us at the end of 2021, there was, I think, $3.3 million in the operating reserve for general government that had been uncommitted to date. I'm assuming it's larger by now, now that we've made it through another budget year. So the suggestion, again, would be to not put $100,000 into the operating reserve for general government for 2023, recognizing that there is that healthy surplus already. I'm happy to move that as a motion.
I'll come back to you once I get Ms. Bowen to respond, and then I'll get back to you for a motion, Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Douglas, that is for the ortho photos. So it is a contract that we were putting $100,000 away every year for 3 years, and then on the third year they're going to be spending that money. So right now they're spending that money, so now we need to start putting money away again for the next 3 years so that they can have that in 3 years to do the ortho photos again.
So just so we're aware that that is an earmark transfer to reserve to do the triannual orthophoto flyover of the regions. But Ms. Mohan?
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Through the chair to Director Douglas, there's additional information about the status of the general government reserves. So while it may look healthy from the sort of end of year 2021 and unconfirmed 2022 balances, there are some committed amounts in those reserves as well, notably almost $1 million for an electronic records management system. So while it may appear healthy, when we look at what's committed for orthophotos and what's committed for the EDRMS, we find that the general government reserve is precariously close to the 2-month, if not under the 2-month operational reserve policy limit.
Okay. Do you want to think on that, or I'll go back to you, Director Douglas, before I continue with the speakers list? Are you good for now? Okay, I'll go ahead.
Yeah, I think so, Mr. Chair. I guess I'm just, and I recognize everyone's working really hard to pull this together, but I'm just not totally clear on the numbers then, because the information we are provided with regards to the operating reserve balances distinguish between committed and uncommitted, but it sounds like the uncommitted is actually much smaller than was indicated in the information provided to us. And again, I'm saying, recognizing that we're under tight timelines here, everyone's trying their hardest, but I'm just not totally clear on the numbers at this stage.
Thank you. Ms. Bowen?
Through the chair to Director Douglas, yes, we have found that there's a few that have been missing some committed amounts of stuff that has been put in supplementals. So let's say this year you committed stuff for the next 3 years. Those 2 years, 2024 and 2025, has not been included in some of those committed values. And we have found that with some of the supplementals going backwards, that some of those years, those amounts are missing and that they should be committed, and that we need to make sure that they're included, that we're not just including what is being committed for that year. We should be including what's being committed for the next 5 years, because there are some projects that are going out more than just 1 year.
Okay. So do you want to leave it there for now, Director Douglas? I'll go through the speakers list and I'll come back to you if you want to make the motion and test the House. I have Director Acton and Wilson. If I missed anybody, please raise your hand. Director Manhas. Thank you. Director Acton.
First question is just about the process. Is this our last time going through the whole budget, or I'm just a little unclear of are we going through each item today?
Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Acton, yes, today is your last chance to make any changes that you want to have done to the budget, because we will be adopting the 5-year financial plan on March 8th.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a couple questions then.
Go ahead.
And some changes.
Go ahead.
So I was wondering about, so we just approved the arts and culture strategy. I was wondering, where are the arts guilds in this? I know they get some funding, and I wasn't sure if it comes to an end, or if I could just be reminded of how that works.
Welcome, Mr. Elzinga.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through to Director Acton. So Function 400 for Regional Arts and Culture is $130,000. It's basically split 5 ways, with contributions to arts councils totaling $50,000. Contributions to other arts organizations, approximately $30,000, and then some funding for staffing and regional coordination. So for the arts councils, including the South Cowichan Arts Guild, there are contributions every year for their continued operation, and those would continue. So that was based on assessment at the time of implementation back in 2016. So there are different amounts to the different arts councils, but that would be continuing.
Thank you. Follow up? Director Acton?
No, I just have a couple other items. Can I do it now?
Why don't you put one more on the floor, and then I'll add you to the next round after I go through the list.
All I heard was a list, but
You
okay.
said put your next one on the floor, and we'll see
Okay.
how it goes, and then I'll come back to you on the next round for more.
Okay, I wanted to increase the funding for the Shawnigan Lake Historical Society to $30,000. It's currently at, I believe, $26,500. someone would second that motion.
And difference to come from requisition for Area B?
Yes,
Thank you. So do we have a seconder for that? Seconded by Director Justice. Any discussion on that? Staff clear on the motion? Great. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Motion carries. For the next one, Director Acton, I've got you first on the next list. I'm just going to go through the rest of the speakers and give them a shot at their scalpels or extra basket of goodies. Director Wilson, you're next, and then Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hang on a second. I'm going to try and put my confused face on again here. So I am looking at let's have a look, attachment B, where it shows Schedule B, attachment B, which according to Area C shows a percentage change of minus 5.76%. Now, this is where it gets it, because God bless our accountants, we got minus in one place and then we got the brackets, which is supposed to be a minus as well, which basically says that my taxes in Area C are going down. But we know that's not true, because if we then look at, hang on a second, I've got to find the right one again, the graphical representation, we're going up. Miss Bowen, enlighten me, please.
Assessed value. Ms. Bowen.
I don't have those schedules right in front of me at the moment, but I'll have to have a look at that to see what you're referring to.
So I think, Director Wilson, are you referring to where it says percent change per 100,000 of assessed value? Yeah, so I think, your mic's off, by the way, Mike. Your mic's Mike.
Sorry about that.
I think that's because of the assessment increase versus, like, it shows the budget increase for Area C going from 3.494 to 3.834, so an increase of 339,000.
Yep.
But then percent per 100,000 value is based on assessments. So did the assessments go up enough to that per 100,000 it's actually less, but on a per household basis it would be actually increasing? I don't know. I'm just saying that with a question mark. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is the questions I get from residents sometimes. Yeah. It's very, very confusing to look at this and say, hang on a second, one graph shows an increase, this one supposedly shows a decrease. Where are we actually going here? And I'm sorry, but, you know, I'm not that brilliant at accountancy. I'm not bad, but I'm not, you know, when I see minuses and things like that, my brain goes to, oh, we're going down, but we're not. So if we could look at that, please. Is there anyone else having the same problem here, or is it just me? Oh,
no,
okay.
Well,
there's a couple.
If we all look at our schedules, I think they all look fairly similar, except for poor Ladysmith. There's no way you can have an assessment that'll eat up $800,000 on a $1.7 million previous year, but that's a debate for our low service participation. Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Wilson. So there is a couple different factors that follow into all of these worksheets that we do. There's ones that based on your requisition of what you're increasing the taxes. So like the schedule that we post after every meeting that we have with you, that shows the increase in your requisition based on assessment. This one now is showing what your total cost per 100,000 home is going to be. And it did drop in some places. Because of the regional rec, because of how regional rec worked in, some people were going down, but their areas were going up. And that's why these percentage changes, they don't always correlate to one another, to the percentages. And I know we always talk about percentages, dollar values, which way is the best way to do it. It's a complicated spreadsheet. It's almost like I want to have a meeting with you guys offline to show you the spreadsheet that we use to figure out all the stuff that we present to you guys. Because it is one very massive spreadsheet that we work on.
I'm sure it is, and I'm sure you understand my predicament here. When somebody comes to me and says, "What are my taxes going to do this year?" I at times say, "I don't know," and because there's so many spreadsheets. All right, I'll leave it at that. But I would like to sit down with you sometime, Ms. Bowen, and say, "Okay, I'm sorry, here I am again. Lead me on and show me what's going on here." Thank you.
Thank you. And I would always point folks to Schedule E, because that looks at the average home. It tells people that in Area C, the average home in Area C does have an increase of 127.62. The average home being 970,848. So what that does is allows somebody to say, okay, my home is a little bit higher or lower than average, and sort of at least get an idea. But that Schedule E for me is the best representation of the actual sort of impact per household. Did you have a follow-up, Director Wilson? Sorry, your microphone's not on.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, Schedule E was the one that I was looking at, and that shows a different number to the one that we were looking at on the other spreadsheet there. So there's all these numbers flying around. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Wilson. So Schedule E is an average home based on what everybody pays into in that area. The thing to consider that is not included in the Schedule E is anything that is a specified area. So anything that only part of your area pays into does not get included on that Schedule E. Schedule D will list everything, and you'll notice that the top part is everything that everybody pays into, and the bottom part is where your specified areas are. And then those are what will be showing up on people's tax notices. There'll be the 100, if it's $100,000 per 100,000, then there'll be the small amounts at the bottom which show up as separate little line items on their property taxes.
Okay.
So that is where the Schedule D. E is just an average, and we don't show any specified areas because we can't include everybody into it. And then
Okay.
that's why their two numbers are difference between the two.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm confused. Director Wilson, I'm going to go through the rest of the speakers list here. If I have Director Manhas next, but I saw Director Morrison. Any others on this round before I go back to Director Acton for round 3? None for now. Director Manhas, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Bowen, I'm going to follow up on Director Douglas's questions. Is how much is actually committed for Function 100 to date?
Through the chair to Director Manhas, we're still working on those numbers to figure that out. We have been quite short-staffed in the finance department in the last couple of weeks.
Okay, so my second question is how much do you anticipate for 2022, and those numbers are not ready yet? Okay, and we will be adding to the surplus moving forward every year. I assume that's what that's what's been done for all these years. My question is, do we really need the $100,000 to be added to Function 100 this time, given the tough taxation year we're in right now?
So that's the same question as Director Douglas posed, I believe. I don't know if staff can add anything to that. Ms. Mohan?
Through the chair to Director Manhas. So it's staff's job to let you know what the amounts in general government have been committed to based on past board decisions. Right, so the decision to add $100,000 every year for orthophotos is a board decision. The decision to reserve, on staff recommendation, but the decision to reserve, close to $1 million for a future electronic records management system is a board decision. So, these decisions can be reviewed and revised by the board. At this time, staff don't recommend that because these are priorities which we continue to have and we continue to need to fund going forward, but they're not. They're within the purvey of the board to review and decide.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Mohan. I do understand that's all, but those are all committed funds now that are sitting in our budget now, or are they in future years' budgets? Like, have those funds actually been $1 million and $300,000, $100,000 per year for ortho being actually committed?
They are, through the chair to Director Manhas, they are committed. And they're projects that are ongoing. And that's why we put the $300,000 away. Then in the third year, that's when they spend it. And that's what they're doing right now, is spending it. So it's not like all of a sudden, okay, in year 3, we're going to say to the board, okay, you have to tax for $300,000 because we have to do the ortho this year.
No, I totally understand. I've done budgeting stuff.
And the $900,000 is committed from the time that project first was brought as a supplemental a couple years ago. It rolls forward. There's a lot of stuff that rolls forward every year of projects that do not get completed. And if there's reserves funds assessed to that, that is what the committed values have to stay there. And there's more than just those items that are in the 100 that are committed.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to know what's actually committed, if you have that amount But anyway, so we don't have those numbers yet. But I do understand, I know IT think it's needed by the organization, it's very, very needed. So this was so I do understand that those are needed and they were approved by the board, so, thank you.
Thank you. I have Ms. Bowen?
Through the chair to Director Manhas, there's also 500,000 committed for the island corridor, for the rail.
That's still held in reserve, yeah, which we'll get an answer on fairly quickly. The day before the budget is required. So too late, unfortunately, to make any drastic moves this year. Director Morrison, and then I'll go to the next list. I have Directors Acton and Douglas on the next round.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was really hoping we weren't making these final adjustments today, but and I really got to thank finance staff. And it takes sometimes years to figure out all the permutations and the different lines and the brackets and the not brackets, and it makes perfect sense to me. Are the forms and the schedules that have been provided at this point, and just in regards to what Director Wilson, that those two last categories in that sheet are great for when you get that question. My assessments are through the roof. What the heck is this going to mean to me? And but I'll get back to my stuff. Function 236, like to increase requisition by $5,000 and allocate it to minor capital.
Sorry.
And if I could have a seconder on that, that would be great.
I lost that. What was the?
Sorry, I don't think they clearly heard it. Can you just say your motion
Okay.
again?
So area, I'd like to move that for function 236, area F, community parks, the requisition be increased by $5,000 and increase minor capital.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director Segal. Discussion? Seeing, Director Manhas.
And that is coming out of
Function
Area F.
236, Area F. Yes.
One clarification.
Everybody jumped to support you when they heard where it was coming from. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Director Morrison. Ms. Bowen, you've got that? Awesome, great, thank you. Director Morrison, follow up?
My next item, increase, I move that the requisition for function 116, area F, grant in aid, be increased by $5,000 to $25,000.
That's been moved by Director Morrison, seconded by Director Wilson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. You good for now,
That
Director?
concludes my changes. Thank you.
So we have Director Acton on the next round, and then Director Douglas. Director Acton.
Thank you. I would just like to reduce the requisition for Area B grant and aid to 0. So reducing it, what was proposed, it was proposed at $10,000, and I would move that we put it at 0.
Okay, seconded by Director Segal. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed, motion carries. You have any more, Director Acton?
Well, I noticed that the electoral area feasibility study is in the negative $10,000. So I was wondering if it would be worthwhile so that the South could have, if we could just put it at 0, so that maybe if the South could continue the conversation of our governance somehow, it may relate to water sustainability. It may relate to that. If it remains in here, it could maybe just be a kind of terms of reference or somehow that we could move forward this year.
So what function is that, Director Acton? Do you know the number? 130. Oh, sorry. Ms. Bowen, have you got any input on that?
This is just the electoral areas studies one. So they did, at the meeting that we had when this budget was brought up, you guys decided as a board to drop it by 10,000.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you
so
want
I'm just asking the committee if we could just leave it at 0. Because so that we have, say, even just $10,000 to get some consultation on how to move forward. If we, because for the South, not starting any kind of discussion now really puts us at it's too late. So, and staff came to us recognizing that the South is really in an urgent need. Yes, we have the same problems as other electoral areas, but the scale is massive. And, I believe that we're here to support each other, and we're kind of stuck in a system that's not helping. So then, we have this decision that we're in this continuous cycle. So maybe we could at least have a little bit of money that if staff is still trying to solve our issues or to move forward in some way, but maybe this could just give us, a hand up. It's not a lot, but maybe it's something.
So could you just make a motion that, like, I get the idea, but I'm not clear on the motion. So you want to add the 10,000 back into function 130?
Yes, I think, let me get the exact numbers. I think it was 15,000. It was 25,000 last year, was reduced to 15,000. So I'm just asking that we make it total of 25,000 from requisition.
So Ms. Bowen, are you clear on that? Okay, as long as finance is clear on it and the electoral area directors are clear on that? Okay, so that's been moved by Director Acton to retain the 25,000 in function 130 and is seconded by Director Nicholson? Yes? Okay. Pardon me, so that's on the floor. Discussion, Director Martman.
So maybe staff can help me because I'm feeling I was prepared for when we talked about this electoral services. So I've pulled out my information sheets from that meeting. And what I see, and maybe staff can weigh in on this, is that at the end of the balance at December 31st, 2022, there is 16,500 in that function 130.
Through the chair, Director Martman, you're correct on that. That's the balance.
And
So,
sorry.
go ahead.
A follow-up.
Yep.
And so, if I understand this motion right, we're bumping it back up to the 25 rather than having it at 15, but the 15 would be added to the 16, so we would have about 30,000 plus.
So through
At where it is now, sorry.
Yeah, so through the chair, Director Martman, as you'll notice, already approved in the budget, there's already going to be a withdrawal from the operating reserves of 15,000, so it's going to bring it down to 1,000. So there's not going to be a room to cover the 10,000 that Director Acton is recommending.
So there's a committed balance on that function that will take it down to essentially $1,500. And Director Acton is asking to put 10,000 back into it. So at the end of all of that, it would be 11,500. Thank you. So that's what the motion speaks to. Go ahead, Director Martman.
Sorry, I guess my confusion is that there is no committed balance in this sheet that we had when we talked about this electoral area meeting.
So through the chair to Director Martman, at the meeting in January, the budget was approved with a transfer already for the 2023 to come out of the operating reserve. So that's why it's not a committed on here, because this is a commitment for 2023 that it's coming out of. The budget was proposed to have it transfer out, and the budget was approved with it being transferred out of $15,000 out at that time in January.
I need some time to digest this. It's not making sense to me.
So for clarity, because I don't know anything except for what I've just been told, that there's no committed balance prior to 2023. There was 16,500. The budget decisions that have been made to this point take 15,000 out of that function and spend it on something. So after that motion was made, approved, and included in the budget, there's going to be 1,500 left in that reserve. Director Acton's motion is to put 10,000 more into that reserve via requisition, I presume, to get it up to a balance for the 2023 budget year of 11,500. So that's the net effect.
One follow-up then?
Yep.
So I believe that sometimes that these monies are paid back. So is the money that's committed in 2023 likely to come back?
Through the chair to Director Martman, I'd have to talk to engineering department because they're the ones that are doing the studies. Some of these studies sit on the books for years and years and years and never get paid back. One in particular is one that John did for regional recreation that we've got to be able to pay that back this year of 10,000. So that's going to be paid back in 2023 from the regional requisition that we will acquire, and we will pay back this fund. But if the study is done and there is no function developed after the study, that money is done and gone until a function is established at the time, and then we can collect that money back at that time.
And one more, I feel like I'm just pushing on this, but I understand would there be money coming back from feasibility study done in Area H this year? Because it looks like things are moving forward.
Through the chair to Director Martman, I'd have to look into that because I'm not sure what that study is. And as if it is for a function, then it would be, if a function is established, then it gets paid back. If it's a water or a sewer system, once that's established, at the first year that that's established, then the money will go back into that reserve.
Right, so if we know money's, like, I know the alternate approval process, I think, has gone forward. So just interested, like, if that's something we could have information on before we decide on this?
We want that information. We're talking about like thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or I just find it funny that we get into these big debates over a $10,000 motion when we've just passed millions.
Yeah.
So we're talking about a penny per household for the region or for the area, but.
So through the chair to Director Martman, we
That's my pencil.
we don't, from the history of I've known of working here, we don't budget for it to be coming back into the next year until we know it's actually going to be finalized and done, because it may happen this year, it may not happen till next year. It all depends on when the first round of property taxes or parcel tax or user fees come in, and then we can take that money back at that time, because you don't want to put the fund or that new service into a deficit in the very first year that it comes in if there's going to be no services actually started or no fees or anything collected on that year. So they usually wait until they know that everything is finalized and done before we actually try and claw it back.
Final comment?
Please go ahead.
So final comment is my mantra of this term, 17.89% is what we're facing in Area H, and this is my sharpening the pencil. I won't be in favor of this. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Directors Wilson, Morrison, and Manhas on the speakers list on this motion, and then we'll go back to our list, which has Director Douglas next. If I've said your name, you're on the speakers list, you can lower your virtual hand. Your arm will get tired. So Director Wilson, then Morrison, then Manhas. Director Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I hate to go to the conflict on this, but we had a very, very long discussion on this yesterday. There is, and I'm on the side of Director Martman on this one. We all are already facing enough of rises, especially in my area as well. And I won't be supporting this. I think we need some more time to talk to the community and get the word out to talk to them, first of all, in person. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Director Morrison, then Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm kind of with you on this one. I'm going to remind electoral area directors that we don't have pockets to reach into to find money to do stuff that is really important. And, we may decide that, we'll just let this cruise around zero. This has been a healthy function before, and it's been so beneficial to be able to go, wait a minute, we have the electoral area feasibility. We we can get to that. And just on the note of what Ms. Bowen had said about monies coming back in, it's always been the process that we know the money goes out. It's a bonus if it comes back in, but we never count on it on a specific year or year in or year out. I'm going to suggest this is a very prudent suggestion, this motion, because if we have something come up throughout the year that's unexpected, that needs to be done, it's usually a matching grant program from there's usually some matching funds that come from the province to do whatever inquiry needs to be done. It will really be difficult if there's something that demands our attention and we have no place to go to find a little bit of money. I'm really concerned about this sitting at, $1,500 or a reduced amount. We should make prudent investments in areas that may have a big impact on those people that need us to step up and do these sorts of things. I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Director Manhas and then no one else on the list for this. And okay, again, this is an electoral area function that the motion is about, but I'll put Director Douglas on that speaker's list as well. I have Director Douglas on the next thing about budget. Director Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Ms. Bowen, you did pass around a pencil sharpener, so, $10,000, you save your nickels, so they add up to dollars, so that's.
Just a point of clarification, you chose the lollipop.
I know. That $15,000 that was committed for 2022 budget, was that for the governance piece that we discussed yesterday?
Through the chair to Director Manhas, I'd have to check with engineering. It was actually an engineering supplemental that came through, so it's probably water, sewer, drainage is probably where that money is being earmarked for.
Okay, thank you. That's all that's.
Thank you. So this is again on the motion that's on the floor, Director Douglas.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just want some clarity on this. So the motion is to add the 10,000, but is this for governance study, incorporation study, or could you specify exactly?
So Ms. Bowen.
Through the chair to Director Douglas, Function 130 is set up for feasibility studies done for the electoral areas. So this would be doing a governance study down at South End is considered a feasibility study.
And for clarity, this wouldn't be, yesterday we were asked for a larger sort of allocation to that bigger governance study. What Director Acton has said, and she can speak for herself, was that putting this money in otherwise the function is depleted, and if there's any work towards that this year, they may not have funding to do it. Or even, as Director Morrison said, other feasibility study type work. Without the flexibility within the budget, there would only be $1,500 available for the coming calendar year to do that work.
So basically then the specific project that it would be used for may or may not be the governance study, but it's to be determined by the sounds of that.
Yes. Thank you. Any other speakers on this motion? I'm going to call the question then. All those in favor?
Well, so if people would like to hear
if I ask for more speakers on a motion, you need to raise your hand before I call the question. Director Acton, go ahead.
Thank you. Like if people need to hear from engineering on how important this function is, it might be on the call. But for us to handcuff ourselves like this for the whole year, when A, B, and C are going to pay for most of it too, let's not forget.
Thank you. Does anybody else want to speak to it? I don't want to put engineering on the spot, because if they wanted to speak to it, they'd probably have a supplemental request to put money into the function. If anyone from engineering wants to speak to it, they're welcome to. Otherwise, I did see Director Segal's hand as well.
Thank you. I agree with the chair on this. This is a huge amount of time spent talking about $10,000 that's spread over 9 electoral areas to have a little bit of funds to help, fund any kind of feasibility study that would benefit potentially any area. I support this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Oh, Director McClinton.
Yeah, through the chair, I'm going to be supporting this too. Just please read the motion just so I know It was just got confusing at the end, just so I know which way I'm voting.
So, Ms. Bowen, the motion, as I understand it, is to allocate $10,000 from requisition from the electoral areas to function 130 feasibility studies. Clear? Great. All right, any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? And opposed? So we have Directors Manhas and Wilson opposed? And Martman, sorry. I was looking on my screen and your hand was out of frame. Okay. Seeing that's done, motion carries. All right, who's next? Director Douglas. You're up on The Price is Wrong.
Yeah, I just want to go back to our earlier discussion about the general government operating reserve, just to make sure I'm 100% clear on that. So with the information that was provided to us indicated at the end of December 2021, there was 4.9 million in that operating reserve. So 1.5 million was committed, and then just under 3.4 wasn't committed. And I just want to make sure I understand this correctly, that staff mentioned there's the other $1 million for the electronic records management work underway, then also the 500,000 for the Island Corridor Foundation. So that's another 1.5 million. Is that 1.5 million? Is that 1.5 million of the 4.9 or of the 3.4? Or is there two $1.5 million amounts
Committed.
Committed, or 3 million committed?
Through the chair to Director Douglas, I can have a look at that and recalculate the numbers and have something later today. But as I said, been very short-staffed in finance, and there's been other top priorities besides just the budget that we're trying to stay on top of. So this kind of didn't get put to the forefront to look into.
Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to take a little pause here for a sec, because I don't have anyone else on my speakers list with a scalpel or a basket to add to it. So if we want to look into this, and we could take a recess, unless other folks have other items they want to discuss, we could take, say, a 10-minute recess. We're making good time, and I don't want to prolong anything for anyone if we can help it. Thank you for that. But I do want to give the opportunity to better understand this conversation around the General Government Reserve, if that's necessary. So why don't we take a 10-minute recess, and we'll give staff some time to just come back and help us with a little clarity on the reserves for Function 100. All right, we're back. I should have done the chair spin. That would have been more fun. All right, so we're back. We did take a little recess there to see if we could get a little clarity on the General Government Function 100 reserves. And I'll put it through to Ms. Mohan. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to the board. So 15 minutes is not really enough to really get some definitive numbers, but what we have been able to discern is that the sort of the operating reserves document that you have, that's kind of a draft document because we haven't done year end and because we don't know fully what has been committed in 2022 until we've done that, does seem to show a figure under committed for general government that is lower than what we know to be committed. So it's currently showing $1.52 million as committed, but our sort of 15-minute summary indicates to us that it's probably closer to 2.78 million, and it may be even higher than that. So, but at this time, we don't have a way of confirming that for you today. With that, and those two additional, those additional amounts are related to two things. One, several years ago, general government was consolidated. So there were a number of different budget areas that were pulled into general government. And those budget areas had committed funds from prior budget years for different projects that they were doing. And so as those projects get completed, the monies get pulled out of those funds. So, and that was close to about $400,000 that still remains for spending out of those funds, and that we have to keep separate, right? So, and then the other piece had to do with COVID restart funding. So there's a pocket of about $700,000 that's COVID restart funding that's been committed to different eligible projects under that funding that have yet to be completed. So if you subtract that 2.78 from the balance that's showing on this document, which is not entirely up to date, it does pull the general government reserve down below the 4-month maximum. So staff don't really feel comfortable with a government our size of having a general government reserve balance that's below that 4-month maximum. And so we would still recommend not using reserves to offset requisition in general government. However, the proposal that Director Douglas had tabled around the $100,000 for ortho photos is an order of magnitude that seems low risk to us. So we did do ortho photos this year, and so we have some current data, and there's a little bit of flux with ortho photos, both around cost and extent of project and timing of when we do that project. And so if you were interested in reducing requisition burden by foregoing that contribution to reserve, I think finance staff would not find that high risk. Additional spending to that, we would be very nervous about. So,
Thank you so much. I'm going to go to Director Douglas to see if he wants to continue that conversation, and then I have Director Morrison. You're welcome to make the motion. Go ahead, Director.
Yeah, based on Ms. Mohan's advice regarding that, I am prepared to move that we reduce the transfer to the operating reserve to function 100 by $100,000.
It's been seconded by Director Manhas. So do we need further discussion? I do have Director Morrison, so Director Morrison, go ahead.
Thank you. I don't know if there's supposed to be another part to that, or whether there was a accompanying reduction in requisition.
Sorry, I think that would be the intent would be reduce the $100,000 transfer to general government reserve for ortho photos and reduce requisition by $100,000. Okay, back to you, Director Morrison.
And just a comment, and I get we're looking for those spots here and there that we can, and this is similar to that feasibility study discussion we had a little bit earlier, and there have been times when the board has had something come to us that has been, a bigger ask. And once again, a regional district doesn't have a general fund to go in and look for dollars. And this is sort of the only spot that we as the larger group has an opportunity to go and look for funds. So I can support the $100,000 motion that Director Douglas has put forward, but I would really caution us going and looking further in this particular area, because if something comes up and we might have to say no if we're not in a healthy position in this reserve. Thank you. I'll support this.
Thank you. Further discussion, Director Nicholson?
I am wondering what the minimum and maximum on the operating reserve is.
So the minimum and maximum on the general government function 100 reserves are, now I need my Jeopardy
Okay.
music.
Thank you, through the chair to
What
Director
is-
Nicholson. So the amounts that we have reported on with the information you have are a minimum of 1.19 million and a maximum of 2.38 million. But keep in mind that that is based on operating expenses from essentially 2020. 2021, okay. So in terms of the cost of running general government, you would expect those to actually be a little bit higher because 2 years have passed. So those are the numbers we're using, but they're not 100% up to date. And so by our calculation, this would bring us below, like the committed values would bring us below the 2.38 million. So.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Oh, Sierra. Director Acton, sorry, apologies for the informality.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little concerned about this, kind of like off the fly. I know it's $100,000. Sounds like something that's going to make a difference. It's not when it's over all our areas in as a region. It's not a lot of money. It's equivalent to like I think about $15,000 to one area. So, but does it? As what Director Morrison was talking about, does it prevent us from having the ability to react if something happens? And a lot of numbers were thrown around, so I didn't catch them all. Are we going below our 2-month minimum?
Ms. Mohan.
Through the chair to Director Acton, we don't think so. That's why we consider the $100,000 not contributing it to be low risk. We do know that we're below the 4-month maximum. Whether we're below or near the 2-month maximum would take more time for staff to calculate. So,
Ms. Bowen, you got something to add?
And through the chair to Director Douglas, just to keep in mind that because now we're not contributing to the GIS project for this year, that when they come back to us and maybe next year, they're going to ask for 200,000. So that is going to be tax acquisition at that time. And so that's something we do have to keep in mind.
Thank you. Sorry, Director Acton, you have the floor.
Just to follow up to that comment. So I was kind of worried about the ripple effect here. So I don't think I'm going to be supporting this. I think we've done a good job at doing it where we can, but this is one of those years where there's just not a lot, and really there's not a lot because what the increases are is the regional recreation. So we had a referendum. We're going to have to bite the bullet on this, and that's about it.
Thank you. All right. So, Director Martman, sorry.
I'm listening carefully, and I'm really trying to absorb different positions about saving dollars and about, where do we cut and what do we do. And, there are philosophies around different approaches to it. And I do recognize that it doesn't impact some areas as much, or it's not necessarily a big impact, whether it's 10,000 or 100,000 across the region. But I do believe the intent of what we do is leadership and demonstrating where we can find even minor ways to have successes is important to my community, and I think across the CVRD. So I would encourage people not to say that this is too little to be concerned about, but to say, can we make a difference here? Even a minor difference shows something. Thank you.
Anybody else on the actual motion? Director Manhas. I had Director Morrison and then Director Manhas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And yes, this is that time where we might want to be discussing theories and philosophies, but I'm going to ask you to call a question.
going to give Director Manhas his moment, and then I'll call the question.
Just something really quick. Staff did say this is very low risk, so I think we should all support this. Thanks.
I don't know if the adjective very was in there, but we'll take that as an editorialization. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? And opposed? Directors Segal, Nicholson, Deck, Staples, Stone, Acton, Deck. Did I already say Deck? I was trying to get another number or two in there for the nose. Motion carries. All right, so we are on the final item of our agenda. I do not have anyone on my speakers list. If anyone has a scalpel hiding in your pocket and you want to make one more motion, to now is the time. I know, I see Director Wilson. I was just dragging it out a bit. Director Wilson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to bring forward, obviously, a very emotive subject again here, and I'm kind of surprised at some of the ease in which we spend money here, and some of the
Director
discussion.
Wilson, I'm not going to take admonishing of colleagues. We all come to the table.
All right, okay.
Thank you. Good
All right,
nature.
I'm going to bring forward a very emotional
for
subject
me, so.
again here, and that is the subject of parkland acquisition. And I'm going to make it clear right at the very start here, I'm not trying to abolish. I can't do that, parkland acquisition, but this is a chance to actually help our residents out. I am going to put forward a motion that we just temporarily reduce the $750,000 per year that we are putting into parkland acquisition. For this year, we reduce it to $350,000. That will cover any long-term debt, etc. With the commitment that each year we will bring it back up to reasonable amounts. For this year, let's give our residents a break. Let's reduce it temporarily and then step it up every year. And I'm sure that this will be quite a spirited discussion. So the motion would be that for 2023, we reduce the parkland acquisition from $750,000 to $350,000, with the commitment that every year it will be increased by a significant amount to bring us back up again. Thank you.
So the last part, I'm not going to take as part of the motion, but your motion is to reduce the $750,000 in regional parkland acquisition to $350,000 and reduce requisition by $400,000. Okay, that's been moved. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Director McGonigal. So discussion on the motion, I have Director Morrison and then McGonigal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We've had this discussion. We've had the public for us. We've had both sides. We've had emails. I'm going to suggest that as soon as convenient, you test the House on this question. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to say the same, but I have Director McGonigal and Director Deck.
And I apologize for bringing this forward as a seconder, but when we look at Schedule G, for instance, on the uncommitted balances within the regional parkland of $2.674 million and a $750,000 requisition in a year where significant increases in various regions, to be looking at $10,000 incremental reductions as opposed to $400,000 incremental reductions spread across the region, knowing too that I do support regional parkland, and it is something that is embraced by most directors, but I think in this very difficult year, by a single reduction, we could significantly impact taxpayers in this amount.
I didn't say it into the microphone. I said it to myself. Director Deck.
I think it's more critical now than ever before to keep our parkland acquisition fund where it is, because parks are not just recreational, they're environmental. They have environmental benefits, huge climate mitigation impacts, and watershed benefits. So I would support maintaining it at its present level.
Thank you. I have Director Acton next and then Martman. And again, I think we could probably rewind this for the directors that have been here previously and replay our perspectives from the past. But we can reiterate them here. We've got as much time as you want to be here today. I have Director, who did I just see on the screen?
You said Acton.
Acton and then Martman. Thank you.
Thank you. I won't try and repeat myself. It's just some knowledge for maybe the new directors. I know that $6 million reserves can sound like a lot of money, but it's not for our future, and I think it would be really short-sighted. And we've already proven that a larger reserve would have benefited us. We tried to have the opportunity to purchase Grant Lake. It went up for sale. It's connected to the Coxsila, and a really important piece for water security for the whole region. And it's currently being logged. So we missed that opportunity. And so I'm not sure that we can put a price on it. And perhaps we could ask for what is the savings? Is the savings, $20, $30, $40 per household? And I think it's just really short-sighted. We have climate change, we have water security issues. We don't know what's happening. And even in Shawnigan Lake, where we have a huge amount of water, if you're close to the lake, we had areas trucking in water until November.
Okay.
So that's just one small example that we could not take advantage of.
Thank you. I don't think it would be anywhere near $20 or $30 per household, a $400,000 reduction across all properties in the region. I don't think it's fair to put staff on. Per 100,000 reduction, how much does the average homeowner save? Where's our Jeopardy music? Well, we see if we can get a rough order of magnitude. It's a $2.6 million reserve, not $6 million. I want to make sure we're clear in the Regional Parkland Acquisition Fund. And I'm going to go to Director Martman. I'll come back to Director Acton. Ms. Bowen's looking like she might be able to give us an idea, but I'm not holding her to it. Director Martman.
I'm always in wonder of finance staff, and I just want to do a shout out to them because I appreciate it. This is on the fly, and sometimes, yeah, and I guess maybe that's one of my pet peeves about budget is that this shouldn't be feeling like it's on the fly. Sometimes I get this one in front of us, though, and I have a perspective that I hope doesn't shock people, and that these were decided by referendum. And so we have three things. This is one of them, housing, and just more recently, regional recreation. And so these aren't, from my perspective, I give a lot of credence to that. That's democracy in action. And so I think it has to be extraordinary times that you would say, you would want to change that direction that you've been given by the population. And so the extraordinary time I felt was COVID. I did not want to see anything added in those unknown times. And yet here we're faced, yes, I have a 17.89% increase to my area, but I do respect and have great respect for the democracy of the situation. And this is a referendum question. So this is where I have to put my desire to decrease taxes a bit aside and recognize the democracy of it. So I would be not in favor of reducing this. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll go back to Director Acton because Ms. Bowen, did you get any rough order of magnitude? Usually we have, it's a regional function. We should know a per 100,000 requisition for all regional properties, and then it would just multiply by 4. No,
Okay,
Ms. Bowen?
Through the chair to the board. So if you leave it at the 750,000, it's $1.93 per 100,000. Because it's a regional service.
Yeah.
If you drop it down to 350,000, take out 400,000, you're only dropping it down to 90 cents per 100,000. So you're dropping
So it's
it
about
$1.
$1.
It's $1.
It's $1 savings per 100,000. Right. So if you have $1 million house, it's $10. If you have a $500,000 house, you're saving $5. Okay, thank you for the clarity. I have Director, I said I'd go back to Director Acton when we have that clarity, and then I have Director Morrison to close, and then I want to hopefully call the question. Director Acton, are you good? Okay, Director Morrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to just reiterate the fact that we're at a static figure for as long as I think this function's been in place at $750,000, and look at the cost of property in the time since this started until now. And I just looked up for this function, the maximum requisition on this, I thought it was 1.5 million. It's $2.174 million. And we've kept the static at 750,000. I couldn't in good conscience go backwards. And I'm going to ask the question be called.
I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? So to reduce, so just to be clear, it's to reduce. Order. Sorry, I just thought it would be funny, it was right there. So this is motion is to reduce regional parkland acquisition from 750,000 to 350,000 and reduce requisition by 400,000. All those in favor? And opposed? So opposed, maybe I should have just counted the in favors. Opposed, we have Director Stone, Nicholson, Martman, Douglas, Justice, Toporowski, Morrison, Acton, Abbott, Deck, Segal. Who's for it is Staples, is against, sorry. For it was Directors Wilson, McGonigal, Manhas, and I guess because Director McClinton's not on screen, he would be counted in favor as well. Or did we lose Director McClinton altogether? So he's left the meeting, so he wouldn't count towards quorum. Sorry if we didn't get a time when he left. All right, so the motion fails. Any others? We are at the end of our agenda. If I don't see any others, I will move to our next item, which I believe in this special meeting would be question period. So question period. We don't have anyone online. We don't have anyone in the gallery. I'm going to assume none of our staff are going to take off their name tags to go to the podium as a taxpayer. Apparently that might be a conflict. Seeing none, we will look for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Director Nicholson, seconded by Director Deck. All those in favor? Any opposed? We are adjourned. There is lunch available for those in the building